Good morning, Vietnam. For all that don't know, that is a Robin Williams reference. But we will not be talking about war today. I am starting a podcast. Hopefully, this is something that I will look back on, a day in my life that I will look back on and be like, wow, I am so glad I opened that can, because this is something that I've been anticipating for a while. I mean, I have groups of friends that we talk about a lot of issues, socioeconomics, or sports mostly. And I want to start the sports podcast. My name is Kendawg. That's not my birth name, but that's what I'll be going by in this podcast. So, sports talk with Kendawg. So the NBA more specifically is what I will be focusing on today. It's a very, very juicy league. It's not, there's always been politics behind the NBA because of big star players like LeBron James or Kevin Durant or James Harden's, or the Warriors with the Splash Brothers, the Phoenix Suns, who actually have the best record in the league right now. So there's so many great. God, there are 15 teams in the West, and then there are there's 30 teams in total in the NBA, and I can say that in the year 2022. About 10 to 15 of those teams are just legit. Like, you can do a podcast specifically on each team because they have so much. At any given day, they can beat each other. Going into the playoffs, the NBA used to be more like 4 or 5 teams. Every year it would come down to 2 teams. It's Lakers versus Boston, right? Or Cleveland versus the Warriors with LeBron, or whatever team LeBron is on versus the Warriors. Lakers versus San Antonio, or Lakers versus. The East has always been weak, but the NBA, it has strength now in numbers, and I am very, very excited, exhilarated as a fan. I'm very plugged into the sports analysts, whether it may be just going to drop some names, Skip and Shannon, undisputed. The great Magic Johnson's opinions, or Stephen A. Smith, Colin Cowherd. There's so many. I'm just scratching the surface. I follow about 10 to 15 great analysts. But the purpose and the point of my podcast is to kind of consolidate here the entire arena of talking heads, along with being I'm an athlete. Ice hockey was my sport that I played juniors and semi-professional in. But, basketball is very dear to my heart. My dad played professional basketball, so I know what it is to be a fan, and I definitely know what it is to be an athlete. They're two different things. And then being a sports analyst, that's like, you kind of have to have the marriage of both. So it's a very, very exciting time. I'm going to jump into, now that the introduction is done, and trust me, I can go on a longer introduction. I just don't want to pull you guys too much longer. I will talk, today is April 6th, 2022. And I'm going to start with the Los Angeles yellow colored Lakers. Yellow and gold, right? Purple and gold. Boy, moment of silence, really. The Lakers were initially, in the beginning of this season, supposed to be the Real Madrid, Lakers. Star-studded cast. You have LeBron, as some call him the GOAT. That's another discussion. And then you got Russell Westbrook. aka Westbrook now. You got Anthony Davis, or Anthony, damn, he's injured again. Um, and then you got like Carmelo Anthony and like Dwight Howard's, and like you had Rondo's, and then you have all these other supporting casts that I'm not going to get into. But on paper, it was like Disneyland. It was a dream. But it just, there are many factors which I will kind of break down to why ultimately the demise of this five-star team just kind of tanked. So they ended up finishing last night 17 games under 500, which, if you guys don't know, 500 is just, you win 17 games and you lose 17 games, but they're 17 games below that. I think their final record on point was 31 wins and 48 losses. That's that's 39%, give or take 39%. That is not good. You don't need to be a stats analyst to know that that's not good. They got some serious problems in over there in South Bay. LeBron James, I'm not going to beat around the bush. It's kind of the bear in the room, I think, and a lot of great analysts, are saying, don't point fingers elsewhere. This was all on you. If you are a Kobe-esque or a Michael Jordan-esque great, like a Magic or a Larry Bird, right? The greats. This is unacceptable. I mean, he's 36 years old. I'll give him that. That's age. But LeBron, in all fairness, as great as he is, he does age differently. I would say he's in his prime. Most superstars at 36 they're just kind of getting ready to go to the Bahamas or, Cabo or wherever they're going. LeBron James has fuel in the tank, that's for sure. And he showed that with his numbers day in, day out. He's built different. That I'm not going to get into that. And we'll have a GOAT discussion later. But ultimately, I think this season solidified that he's not the GOAT. It's a hard truth. The truth hurts, and truth hurts, especially when you're passionate and you love somebody and you follow them. Being a big LeBron fan or LeBron stan, he is a phenomenal player, fantastic basketball player, but he has a lot of downfalls. Number one, he built this team. He was essentially like the GM. He handpicked them. He called everybody. I'm not into blaming, but he had an opportunity to have DeMar DeRozan in the offseason, which, as you guys can see in Chicago, what DeMar is doing, he's putting up stats, all-star. I mean, that guy's a walking bucket. That guy can teach LeBron James how to play offense. He's just so natural. He's so natural. He had a chance to bring him over here, but he didn't sign off on it. He wanted Russell Westbrook, and I get it. They played in the league for a long time together as competitors, with the Durants, and so Westbrook was coming off of a decent stat line. He's a triple-double machine, got it over in Washington, stat stuffer. But as you guys know, the guy's IQ is zilch. He wanted Russell Westbrook, maybe their friendship, whatever the case is. And Russell's a Angelino, a native Los Angeles fellow. So he wanted him. Anthony Davis wanted him. And then they started stacking, they're getting the Carmelos. And Carmelo, it can be a bucket, but just, it just didn't work out. It was a great team, but there was no chemistry. Maybe it's just these superstars are not used to playing with other superstars. They're always the guy on their team. Um, aside from Carmelo recently, but he's like on the tapering end of his career. Um, so yeah, whether we like it or not, the discussion of the GOAT, for me, it was never a discussion. Michael Jordan is the GOAT, and then Kobe Bryant, and then, you got LeBron James. And you can have a favorite, just like you can have a favorite fruit, right? Like I'm an apple guy, or they might be an orange or a pear guy, right? They're different players, except for Jordan and Kobe were kind of from the same DNA construct. So I do respect what LeBron James has done for the game of basketball. I think it's beautiful what he does off the court. I just don't like how people try to force this narrative that he's the GOAT, and that's not the case. And he himself does it, actually, him and his group. They try to do as much as they can in the mass media to push that narrative. But, it's if it ain't organic, it's not organic. It's not going to work. And people like Skip from Skip and Shannon's Undisputed. Skip has been a big critique of his, even though he gives him praise and says, look, LeBron is the phony GOAT. Whether we like it or not, he left everywhere. He's been to the final 10 times, which is fantastic, right? But you only won 4 out of 10. That's 40%. If you shoot 4 out of 10 on the free throw line, that's not good. You got to be hitting like 7 out of 10, right? Or 8 out of 10 to be like kind of, considered good. The guy puts a lot of effort, and I respect him for that, but it doesn't come natural. He doesn't have that clutch natural gene like Michael Jordan, MJ, or Michael Jeffrey Jordan, they call him, right? Or Kobe Bean Bryant. I'm sorry. Like, I have buddies that love LeBron James, and they will go down to the mat for the guy. I have a hard time figuring it out. I mean, okay, you played football, so you like his football style of basketball. You know how he can take. Well, look, he can get to the rack like nobody else, and I respect him for that. But the bottom line is, you look at his record. He goes and GMs and goes to superpower teams. He created the original superpower in Miami, and it did work. And 1 year it doesn't work. He has a prima donna. He's a prima donna, and he leaves. He doesn't take accountability. He has a problem with taking accountability. That's my biggest issue with LeBron James, and he tries to sway all the issues, all the bad things on the other guys. But when things are going well and great, it's all him, baby. I mean, he's the face of it. He's the poster child of it. Golden gifts all over the place. Give him his flowers, right? That's what he wants. And that to me is not a true leader. A true leader goes down with the ship and says it's their ship and it's their fault. He has not done that. And I don't like that about him. I'm not going to get into some psychological reasons why. Maybe he grew up as an only child, with a mother and father not being around, but like a true leader does not do that. Okay. Again, I don't want to take away from his greatness off the court, the LeBron foundations that he does, helping kids and everything. Wonderful. I mean, he's a politically, I align 1-to-1 with the guy, but you can't do, to me, he seems very prima donna in the sense that, like, he's not a killer. Killers don't act like that. Killers are like, yo, I did it. These are my 5 or 6 championships, right? And in the case of Michael Jordan was in an era where he couldn't join Larry Bird or Magic Johnson. He couldn't, that's just unheard of. LeBron James just goes to Dwayne Wade. Let's do this, right? Let's go Chris Bosh. Like, these are the superstars. That team was stacked, right? They got Ray Allen's, this and that. Because he couldn't do it in Cleveland. He just couldn't win. He was just failing. And he was going to the finals, but, like, there was like 2 or 3 teams in the East every single year. And then he gets over to after Miami, he goes to Cleveland, and they do get that one championship. I am a Warriors fan. I have to go on record in saying this. I am a Warriors fan. Okay, I'm a Splash Brothers through and throughout. I went to college, even hung out with Steve Kerr's son, Nick Kerr. I have some ties to the Warriors, so I don't want to say I'm biased Warriors, but I am supportive of the Warriors. But I am unbiased about the NBA. At the same time, it's like I critique my Golden State Warriors when they are not doing it right. As even to go so forth as to call out my favorite players, the favorite GMs, and favorite coaches. Right is right and wrong is wrong, right? So, I mean, they know that too. So I have to go on the record. And going back to LeBron James, he goes over to Cleveland in 2016, and they rightfully so. With Kyrie Irving, they had a great team. Kevin Love, stacked, Tristan Thompson. I mean, look at their bench. You can go and look at their bench. Google it. 2016 Cavs. They were deep. They even had Richard Jefferson, who was a vet, and they had all these other great role players. They were a deep team, and hats off. That was a 1-to-1. Like, Warriors were stacked, and they were stacked. And they should be more stacked, right? It's LeBron James, right? So-called the GOAT. The Michael Jordans on your team, right? And Kyrie Irving took over. I watched. LeBron did some great things, for sure. He was definitely the second guy, though. He was, I don't want to say he was the Robin to Batman, but I mean, when it came down to those moments, the clutch, give me the ball and get out the way, we got to win this championship, it was Kyrie Irving. That's a fact. I mean, whether he's vaccinated or unvaccinated, you don't like him or whatever the case is, he's a baller, and he balled out. He went Kevin Durant in those moments. And, it really hurt. We had some flukes with Draymond being out because of his antics, typical Draymond antics. And then, we had like some other players are out. I forgot. You'd have to go look back at it. But excuses. They earned it. They came back and they won that. That's the one championship where I'm like, okay, I give credit to LeBron James and his team. But then after that, failure comes. I mean, he goes, three years in a row, he goes to the finals again. The Warriors just slap him. They slap his stacked team. They slap him and his stacked team. And, you can say Kevin Durant went off, whatever, Clay. Look, man, there's a lot of great teams in the NBA that are stacked that just doesn't work out. Look at the Lakers this year, right? So he goes to, it doesn't work. He goes to LA. First year, they don't make the playoffs. He dismantles the entire team. All these young, incredible players. They get sent off, shipped off. The Balls. You got the Josh Harts and Ingrams. They're all gone. Everyone's gone. The core of the team, Randall. Everyone's gone. Didn't make the playoffs, man. Talk about GOAT. So the second year, they go to the bubble, and everybody in the NBA is dropping like flies. I mean, Kawhi's out. The Warriors are out from injuries, like from the inception of the season. Klay Thompson's out. Then Curry gets out. Then you got like Brooklyn doesn't even exist. They're all very, very injured. So you have all these flukes, and then you have like certain teams like Miami's and things like that. Bucks could have fought harder that year, but Miami gets there against the Lakers. Lakers are stacked. Look at that team that wins. They are so stacked. And, they get to their bubble. It is a fluke. Adebayo and Gordon Dragic, their point guard and their center, they're injured. They're done. So they fight in the bubble. And the bubble it was a difficult time. People were not showing up to the bubble. They didn't want to play basketball before the playoffs even started. But LeBron saw it as an opportunity to seize and get more championships for his GOAT conversation, right? And he accomplished that. So we went from no playoffs to a championship. Hey, hats off. Championship's a championship in the NBA, man. It's just that simple. Same with the Bucks. Bucks had a fluke championship last year, in my opinion. Again, everybody was injured, but it's a championship, and they deserved it because they've been fighting for a long time. Toronto Raptors, that's a fluke championship too, hardcore fluke. Great players, great team, but let's be honest. If Kevin Durant and Klay Thompson were there, different story. Different story. It would have changed the trajectory of the game as we know it today. That's the thing about the NBA. One little thing, one X factor can just change the universe of the NBA. It could be a player, it could be a thing that happened in the conference of injuries. So it's pretty wild. The trajectory just changes on a dime like that. That's the beauty of it. Everything can be lined up on paper, but as a GM, you did your job. But ultimately, sometimes luck comes into play too. It's a very, very competitive league nowadays. So, yeah, and everybody's gunning for LeBron and the Lakers, so it's not easy. But the bottom line is, you guys didn't even make the playoffs, man. The play-in. Now it's the new construct is 7th to 10th seed makes a play-in tournament. Man, you didn't even qualify for the 10th spot. It used to be 8th was the cutoff. You didn't even make the 10th spot, man. And on top of that, the last 2 or 3 games when you should be fighting to the death to make the play-in, LeBron doesn't even play. I mean, injury, quote unquote, but I don't know. That's questionable. You can look into that if he's injured or he's just gassed out psychologically and physically or whatever the thing is. He's pissed. So anyhow, I just lost connectivity for a second. Regardless to say, Anthony Davis went on the other day and he made some statements which were unnecessary, and it actually ended up biting him in the butt. He said, the Phoenix Suns 2 years ago, they got away because he was injured, right? He's always injured, first of all. And he's one of the most liable, he was injured in New Orleans. He's an injured guy. And I don't want to get into the games of ifs, because if we get into ifs, that's like a rabbit hole that we're going to go down, and there's so many ifs. Like LeBron's career, if it was counted down to ifs, he would have had 0 championships or 10 championships, right? Ifs. The bottom line is Anthony Davis is making excuses, and Phoenix just pounded them last night because of that and made sure that they don't even have the slightest chance of making the playoffs. And they closed the door on them last night by what? They slapped them by 15 points or 14 points. Maybe less, maybe 11 or 12, but that's still a lot. So yeah, LeBron has to take accountability. Here's an interesting Bleacher Report that I read about. Austin Reeves, who I think for a rookie undrafted is a baller. They call him he's from Arkansas. They call him the Hillbilly Pete Mayer. I don't know, some superstar of the Hillbilly version. And then you have Malik Monk, who's also very young. Fantastic players. If you look at the salary cap, they make 1/10 or 1/15 of what these guys, the stars on that team, is making. And all the biggest shots, all the biggest things they were doing. The problem that these two rookies were having was they're doing everything they can, in helping this team win, and they should be beating. There were so many close games where against the Pelicans or just against so many teams where they should win these games outright. In Los Angeles, and it goes down, they're fighting, and the games that they are winning, they're barely winning in overtime and stuff like that, with people like Malik Monk and Austin Reeves coming through. That's embarrassing. The superstars should have it, it should be they should be waving their wand and making it happen, not dishing ball out to somebody that makes $800,000 a year, right? It's just, that shouldn't be happening. But these two on Bleacher Report evidently said that LeBron James psychologically is really deterring the team because when anything bad happens, they blame the rookies. And then when everything is good, they take the shine. So this was a conversation that that's why Malik Monk and Austin Reeves got very close this season. They balled out, man. Those guys, they're gonna have a great career. Doesn't have to be in LA. They're gonna have a great career in the NBA. And they proved that. They proved their worth. Um, Talon Tucker Horton, THT. He's one of those younger guys that LeBron really vouched for, but in my opinion, he's not. You know, I don't see him being the future. He might be a great role player on a team like the Phoenix Suns that is just stacked inside out. But I just don't see him much from him. Or he might go to a team like Sacramento and get some money or whatever the case may be. But look, the bottom line is no fluff. No more fluff. Like you got to face the music. LeBron, he's phenomenal and this and that, but it's not good, man. You got the Suns in first place. You got the Grizzlies in second, the Warriors in third, the Mavs in fourth, the Jazz in fifth. Nuggets been balling sixth. Timberwolves are fantastic, very fun team to watch. And then they're in seventh. And then you got eighth place. You got the Clippers. Clippers are a balling team. They've just been giving it to the Lakers. I think they've been winning like 4 out of the 4 games or 3 out of the 4 games. Pelicans, I don't know where they came from. And the Spurs, I'm not going to underestimate Pops, even though it's 10th spot. He should have been better, but he has a good young core that he's built over there. Lakers should have been able to take out the Spurs or the Pelicans. I mean, that was unacceptable. It just all happened in the last week. You had the chance to. I mean, you were at the 7th spot over a week ago, and now you drop like a rock to 11th, and you're out. And that is because you lost games to the Rockets. You lost games to the Thunder. Like this is the reason why. And I can't look at and call somebody GOAT status when you're losing those games. I'm sorry, especially with a team like that. I'm sorry, man. I mean, Kobe Bryant on the latter end of his career, he was really injured with his Achilles. He had a team that was a bunch of no stars, and they didn't make the playoffs. But like that was he was on the exit. LeBron has like at least 2 or 3 years, and he's fighting for a championship. So I'm sorry, LeBron. Like it's just not working for you. You can put the blame on Westbrook. That's understandable, but that's how I feel about it. And I know a lot of great analysts. The top talking heads are all saying similar things. This is just my consolidated perspective. But all right, guys, that will be all for today's NBA podcast sports segment. Stay tuned. I will be producing more content very soon. Definitely correlated and linked with the NBA politics and the current climate in the NBA because things are heating up. We're getting to June. Passion all over the place. Very, very excited. Keep an eye out for the big teams like the Suns. Grizzlies doing incredible things without Ja Morant. And then the East is fantastic. I mean, the Heat, they're on top, but Heat have their own issues. You got the Celtics, the Bucks, the 76ers, the Raptors, the Bulls. Man, I was calling the Raptors the Craptors earlier this year, but they really took off. They did some big things over there. Cleveland, and then Brooklyn is the 8th spot. Brooklyn is still fighting. You can't sleep on the Brooklyn Nets, guys. You just can't. Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, they're savants. I mean, those guys are like, if they start clicking, things can happen. So you can't count them out. You never know. I mean, Vegas has gotten everything wrong this year by putting Lakers and the Brooklyn Nets as the favors, and they're barely making. One's not making the playoffs. The other one's barely making the playoffs. But you never know. Brooklyn's been on that stat sheet. So, all right, guys, stay tuned and much love. Thank you for listening. See you next time. Peace.